The San Francisco 49ers have wrapped up the preseason, 1 week off. Aaron Rodgers comes to town. Let's talk about who's going to make this roster and what we saw tonight. Welcome, everybody. Let's go Niners. My name is Jason Aponte. I'm Jason Aponte. Welcome into the instant reaction to Raiders 49ers. Make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. A lot of content coming down the pipe now that the 49ers are headed into the regular season for the most part. Healthy, obviously missing two players that are pretty good, Brandon Ayuk, Trent Williams among them. And there were two injuries tonight. Leonard Floyd, who seemed like he was in good spirits after, so I think that's good news, and Yitzer Gross Matos, but they do have a week off. You'll find out a little bit more about Ricky Pearsall. For all intents and purposes, if the 49ers sign Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk before, they'll be rolling into the regular season healthy, ready to go. But let's talk about the beginning of this game with the starters. I felt like Brock Purdy was good on the first drive as well. I mean, the first throw to Deebo Samuel was outside the numbers, and Deebo won a 50-50 ball. Feels like that's something that's a little bit out of the norm for him, but Deebo made a great job on the adjustment and kept 2 feet in. Great throw. I think the George Kittle throw is the one that everybody is going to get excited about because Brock stood in and delivered a football up, and George went up and made a play on it. I mean, everything else kind of just felt very smooth. Obviously, the interception is not what you want, but just felt like the DB made a good play. The ball was kind of where it was supposed to be, bounced and got into somebody else's hands. It happens. The only thing you don't want to see is Brock Purdy throwing himself, at anyone for a tackle. But other than that, the starters, they look fine. I would have been fine with 1 or 2 series, the most. But I think they went out there for a third one. And then, for whatever the offensive line looks like, obviously Trent Williams will repair that. And obviously Aaron Banks is not playing as well, too, because he's not missing a pinky. Goodness gracious, that would be over the top. He's hurt with a pinky injury. But I think once we get this offensive line all the way together, Trent, Banks, it's going to help everybody else. Obviously, Pooney's been doing very well. Brendel's going to be thrust into the spot that he was usually in, even though, we thought that Feliciano would have a shot at trying to take that spot from him. Now it's just going to be all Brendel. McKivitz is still McKivitz for whatever reason, and take that for whatever you will. But I felt like the starters were fine. It looks like Deebo is going to be fine. George Kittle looked like he was happy to be playing football. Just got to get Ayuk and Trent there. But we got to talk about other guys that are making strides and made an impact in this game. I'll say it, and I said it on Twitter. It's hard to not be excited about this 49ers draft class right now, even though their first-round pick hasn't even taken a snap yet. I mean, when you look at the way that, we're talking about Jacob Cowing, obviously, who scored a touchdown from Dobbs, and he's a lock for the 53-man roster, clearly, because of where he was drafted. I don't think that was really in question, but I think now he's kind of carved out a role as a playmaker and somebody that you need to get on the field, and somebody you just can't say, hey, he's a rookie, he's not going to play. I think you've got to find ways to get Jacob Cowing on the field, if not just for his presence and threatening the defense, but because he's a great route runner, and I think he's an explosive player. So when you look at this draft class from Renardo Green, obviously Pooney starting, Cowing, Grendel gets in there today, and he looks good running the football, but then the kick return is really what's exciting, because you look at the punt return situation, and it looks like Cowing is a little bit more smooth than whoever was, he's competing with. Ronnie Bell had a nice punt. I think his time on this team, though, is up, just based on how they have to get down to 53. But now the special teams, aside from the kick return that was returned for a touchdown, it looks like the 49ers might have actual players who can bring the ball out and change the field and change field position. And Garendo has a 92-yard, return. Cowing looks smooth. This is something that the 49ers have been sorely, lacking. And I go back to this all the time. Ted Ginn was the last person to return a punt for the 49ers for a touchdown. Ted Ginn Jr. That one. That's a long time. So when you look at the way that the 49ers are, and obviously they need to clean things up on special teams, what else is new in terms of coverage? But when you're talking about now difference makers returning the football, it's not just somebody who's back there to catch it. Garendo could be that. Hopefully Cowing turns into that. Every single rookie, when they were given a shot, has actually shown out one way or another. And some have shown out, had some ups and downs. Pooney's just been great. So he's a starter. Cowing after a week of practice just jumped out there. That's crazy. And then Garendo looked good running the football as well too. I felt like he obviously the Raiders had 10 men on the field, which is why they called a timeout. But an 11th man wasn't going to be standing in his way before they called a timeout. It looked like Garendo was going to have a huge run, if not a walk-in touchdown, because he has that kind of burst. So it's for the first time 49er fans can really, really feel excited about a full draft class because they've actually been doing things and not relying on what they believe they'll be. So yeah, it's preseason and obviously you're facing backups and things are vanilla. That's fine. But I can't remember a draft class in recent memory that has had this much excitement around it. And the 49ers have kind of hit. And we've been talking about who they could have had missed out on. Roger Rosengarten. Me and Brian Peacock talked about that. But Pooney's a starter. Cowing looks like he's going to be a mainstay on this offense. If Garendo can be that guy that you kind of see that's a home run hitter, a little bit like Mostert, just one cut and go, take some of the blame and the shift off of McCaffrey. You're talking about Renardo Green and even Batum has had his time, with this preseason that he's had. So yeah, I mean, this is an exciting time, and the 49ers haven't gotten one snap from their first round pick. So it feels like it's all money in the bank right now. So about 260 people in here, guys. Make sure if you're on YouTube, you just give this video a like, hit that subscribe button if you're new here. If you're on Twitter, hop on over to YouTube and do that real quick and come right back, and I'll be taking your questions and everything. So let's start with the first one. Let's see. Denolt, I hope I said that right. What wide receivers are making the roster? So obviously we're assuming Brandon Ayuk. So Ayuk, Samuel Jennings, that's your 1, 2, 3. Calvin Pearsall, 4 and 5. Chris Conley, number 6. Chris Conley is the only one who's equipped to play X. If Ayuk is not there, and do not discount the fact that they love his special teams prowess. Also, during last year's playoffs, when he was called upon, when Deebo Samuel left the game, he has some big clutch catches. He's an NFL veteran. Don't discount that part. So give me Cowing, Pearsall, Deebo, Jennings, Ayuk, and Conley, in my opinion. So let's see. I think both Ronnie Bell and Danny Gray's time is up for sure. Samuel Womack as well, too. I think that's it. I think when you look at what Rock Ya-Sin has done, Renardo Green, obviously, you're keeping Malik Mustafa. You got to figure out what's going on with Funga. You got Jair Brown, obviously Mooney and Lenore. It starts to get down to a numbers game, and Womack just doesn't contribute in a way that makes him like one of these guys that you're like, oh, we have to have him on the roster. Fine, special teams if you want to put it there, but that's not enough. He's not fast enough to play outside. He's not a slot guy. And that touchdown he gave up today was horrendous. That it was just he looked like he didn't even know where he was going, what was happening, and I think that's it. I think that's it with Samuel Womack. I think we're done there as well too. I think what's kind of interesting now is the tight end discussion because George Kittle and Saubert, they're in. Those are your two, right? Saubert's going to be your new Charlie Warner. He's going to be your extra lineman who helps block. Now Cameron Latu and Braden Willis, and I think Cameron Latu's actually shown a little something right now, even though we kind of have all written him off. The only thing that I would argue, because if you're just going to point to, well, Latu has all these catches and, where he was drafted, the only thing I'd point to, I guess, to not only play devil's advocate, but kind of get into the mind of what the 49ers are thinking, is Braden Willis played last year and in playoff games. He didn't have meaningful snaps, but he played. And then when you look at sometimes during the preseason, they're kind of grooming him for Kyle Juszczyk's role, meaning someone who has a similar skill set that you can use to create mismatches, use motion. If you watch the Tennessee game, they ran a flood concept off a play action boot that Braden Willis starts from Kyle Juszczyk's spot, takes one step, goes left. I don't know if that means that they're willing to part with Willis. The problem is that Willis has been missing blocks. And I think we saw that earlier on with JP Mason. JP Mason's a stud also, by the way, guys. That's another good thing. Make sure you feed JP Mason. But it's going to be interesting to figure out draft capital, which is a third rounder for Latu, what you want to do with Willis and where he was drafted. And you're not sneaking Latu by on the practice squad. Someone's going to pick him up. So I think it's going to be interesting to see. So it's Kittle and Saubert, obviously. Those are your guys. Willis, Latu, I think that's an interesting decision. And I think the question boils down to, has Latu done enough? in this past week and in this game to warrant this sort of talk, to warrant this sort of consideration. And Matt Mayoko kind of spoke about that in a tweet earlier about how Jacob Cowing had a really good week of practice, went out there last week and hooped against the Saints. Same kind of deal with Latu. This is your last push to make the roster. So if not now, when? So it's good to see, but I wonder what the 49ers will actually value or what they're thinking in their head, because I think they do have in their minds at least a little bit of trying to figure out if Braden Willis can fill this Kyle Juszczyk role, because he would obviously be able to fill it cheaper, based on the fact that they don't have to pay him as much, and Kyle Juszczyk is the highest paid fullback in football. So I think the tight end too, the tight end depth chart, tight end two is something that doesn't really matter in this offense, because they just make the second tight end block. But I think it's interesting to think about now. What has Latu done enough? Was that enough to stop him from getting let go? So I think when you look at the running back room, obviously Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason, Elijah Mitchell, probably just because they rely on him. Isaac Guerrero has to make the roster right now at this point. I think that puts Cody Schrader on the outside looking in, and they probably put Matt Breida and him on the practice squad and just roll with those four. And then obviously fifth is Kyle Juszczyk. So Isaac Guerrero probably, he didn't need to show out this much, but him showing that was enough to really cement it, because I think the 49ers have told you what they believe about Guerrero by trading up for him and sticking with him and giving him a shot. And I think they really want to use him as that returner. So yeah, I think Guerrero makes this roster. Now, who's going to be available for game day? I don't know, but we're talking about 53-man rosters. It's going to be 5. It's got to be Guerrero, Mitchell, Mason, McCaffrey, and Juszczyk, and then you just take your chances with Cody Schrader and Matt Breida on the practice squad. Who Matt Breida's played well. He hasn't done anything to necessarily say, hey, don't keep him around, but just a numbers game. And I think they can get away with having him on the practice squad without having people beat down the doors trying to get Matt Breida from them. So I think that's just kind of where they're thinking when it comes to that as well too. So 12 minutes in, almost 400 people in here, guys. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. Again, if you're on Twitter, hop on over to YouTube. Give us a like and a sub on there. We got a lot of content coming. So 113 on the East Coast. So these last preseason games are never easy. I think it was the Chargers last year that they did the same exact thing. So I'm trying to get through as quick as I can when it comes to this. So when it comes to defensive line, you want to figure out what's going on with Floyd and Gross Models, because you do feel like this year the depth is particularly concerning. And I think what's going to come down to this defensive line, and if you guys watched me and Brad or me and Brian, we talked about this, is going to be what they value more from their depth pieces. Meaning, Alex Barrett is primarily an edge guy. Can you get away with Yitzer Gross Models playing inside, playing outside, like giving them that flexibility to keep another edge guy? That's going to be the hard part when it comes to figuring out how they're going to put this line together. And Leonard Floyd is somebody who obviously never gets it. I hate when they say that. They're like, oh, he's so durable, and then all of a sudden he goes down in this game and everything, but it looks like he's going to be fine. Leonard Floyd is going to be your primary edge across from Nick Bosa. But what do you value in terms of depth, right? Like, what do you do with T.Y. McGill? What happens? I think Kevin Givens is here to stay as a rotational guy with Hargrave and Jordan Elliott and Malik Collins. Malik Collins has some nice plays today as well, too. I don't think those guys are in danger of anything. It's just when you're looking at the last spot here, is it going to be an edge guy? Is it going to be an interior guy? And that's going to be interesting to figure out, because if it is an edge guy, then you have to feel really good about what you're going to get interior-wise. Because Bosa's not coming off the field, but you have to feel really good about what you're going to get from those interior guys like Gross Matos and all those other guys. So it's going to be tough. I mean, the 49ers have this roster of 90 guys that they got to cut down to 53 in the next, I think it's 2 days, if I'm not mistaken. The league is looking at them, and they're looking to see who they let go, and it happens all the time, because when you have a rep of being able to identify talent, not only in the draft, undrafted free agents, all of those things, you're going to have teams that are going to try to copycat that and say, hey, listen, if they're interested in him, then we got to figure out why, and we're going to figure out what we should do with him, and we'll have a spot for him. So there's going to be a lot of good football players that are not going to make this team, but it's not because they're not good at football, if that makes any sense. It's just going to be a numbers game, and you have to get down to 53. Some guys will be able to leave Maybe they'll float back to the practice squad, but for the most part, the league is looking at the 49ers to see who they're about to let go because they're definitely waiting to pounce on those guys as well too. So it's gonna be hard. I don't envy being Kyle Shanahan and those guys that have to make that decision, or those decisions. So yeah, I guess we could talk about Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk was there. He cut his hair. It's the most I got for you. I don't know what. Uh, I don't know what else to say. Damn, what a crazy end. What happened to the game? What happened at the end of the game? I turned it off with oh kicking a field goal to tie a game in preseason. Wow. All right. Well, I think the goal is more than anything, less than the score, is just to make sure that guys are healthy. The team is rolling. What does the offense look like? Obviously, that's not going to be the offensive line that's going to be protecting Brock Purdy. Trent Williams should be there. I think Aaron Banks is going to be there. That's definitely an upgrade. No disrespect to Nick Sakel. I think the offensive line is going to be interesting because Trent, Banks, Feliciano, McKivitz, Pooney, Brendel, and now you've got to figure out Nugent's been good. Kingston's been good. Can you slide them by on the practice squad? I think they keep Hubbard because I think that's like their veteran guy, one of those guys. So yeah, dog is preseason because they tried to keep the ball alive. It was hilarious. So they kicked a field goal to end the game. You know what? I'll watch it tomorrow. But by the time I turned on the stream, it was already 2-minute warning. It didn't matter. We already kind of knew what was going to happen. There was nothing that was going to happen in those 2 minutes that's going to change any of my thoughts in terms of 53-man rosters. So yeah, Josh Dobbs is number 2. Are we going to talk about the punter controversy today or tomorrow? When are we going to do this? I'm trying to like keep a straight face without like laughing. But yeah, Mitch Wisnowski, count your days, man. Count your days. Um, that was the most exciting preseason ending ever. God, and I turned the game off. I feel like an idiot now. Jeez. Either way, I think the offensive line is going to have Hubbard on it. I think that's somebody that should be there. Kingston and Nugent, I think they try to slide by on the practice squad. But I think again, people are going to look at them and say, they put some good stuff on tape on preseason. So you got to kind of imagine that people are going to, um, you gotta almost imagine that those guys are gonna get a look. So man, you guys are really excited about that. That I gotta check it out. I gotta check it out. So I don't know. Oh, so they were trying to hook and ladder Terradome. They were trying to do the flip backs and everything. And then I think with the quarterback position is Dobbs at 2. And then they'll be able to just keep Brandon Allen on the practice squad and bring him up on game day as the emergency 3 quarterback since they changed the rule for that too. So Tanner Mordecai has been fun, but it's time for you to go too. So we talked about corner, we talked about defensive line, talked about offensive line, talked about tight ends, talked about wide receivers. Yeah, it feels like this team is set now at this point. The cornerback position is going to be really interesting. Isaac Yadam, Rock Yassin, Renardo Green, Lenore, Ward, that's 5. I think Samuel Womack has run his course here, like with this team. It's going to be really interesting to figure out how they get this down and what they're going to do. So, it's not that I think that Samuel Womack's a bad player. I just think he has this weird fit where he's not an outside corner and he's not a slot guy. He's just in between. He's not fast enough to play outside, but he's not quick enough to play inside. And it's weird. It's just again when you look at the play where he's caught with the touchdown and everything, it kind of just encapsulates where he's been as a player. And I think the 49ers have been patient with him. But again, when you're looking at this team, linebackers, there we go. I knew I was missing something. Cool. I think Fred Warner is gonna make this team. Is that fair? Is that a fair assessment? All right. Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Devondre Campbell, D Winters. That's 4. Um, Jalen Graham, Curtis Robinson. I think Curtis Robinson makes this team. Curtis Robinson started today. I think Curtis Robinson makes this team because they were trying to get him on the roster earlier. So Curtis Robinson makes this team. I think Jalen Graham may make the team. I don't know. Again, and this is me just putting my cap on to try and get into the mind of Kyle and John. Do they value Demetrius Flanagan Fowles because of his special teams and he's been here and you don't have to worry about him? Or do you try and swing on an upside guy like Jalen Graham, keep him around? That's going to be the part that's going to be weird. Like, just because, and I don't know how to explain this. And again, if it's unclear, please someone in the comments let me know. The better players sometimes don't make it because of culture fits or whatever it is a team likes about somebody. I hope that sounds like correct, like what I'm trying to say. Like the more talented guy could be there, but if you don't believe in him in certain moments, or if you're looking at him like, oh, I don't trust him, um, it could just go the other way because you know what you have with somebody else, right? And Demetrius Flanagan Fowles, like, he's a special teams guy. Um, again, for all intents and purposes, the 49ers are just gonna have to play Warner, Greenlaw, Devondre Camp. They won't have to play anybody else whenever Greenlaw comes back, right? Like, you hope that's the case. So I think that's going to be interesting to see kind of that, because I think a lot of people are saying, well, look at Batoon, and look at Graham, and look at Graham's had some splash plays, and obviously Curtis Robinson's played very well. And then if a guy like DFF sticks around, I don't even necessarily think that it's because they believe he's the better football player. I think they're just going to be thinking, well, he's the culture fit. That's our guy. And he fits, right? Like, and I think that's the part of the 53-man roster that kind of it makes people scratch their head a little bit. And I think Callie's right. Like, again, if I'm saying the same thing about Samuel Womack, in terms of like it's run its course, I think it's time. Then I think, again, like Callie said, the DFF thing is kind of run its course. Like, you've he's been here. They love him. They love what he brings to the team. That's great. But there's guys here with high upside that you have to tap into, and you can't just keep relying on, well, we know what he is, and he fits this and he fits that. That's part of the problem. What's up to my boy Alex? What's up, bro? So yeah, I mean, I'll keep this quick because it's already 122. But yeah, I think again the offense was fine. Again, I think if we're gonna do it real fast, McCaffrey, Mason, Mitchell, Garendo, Juszczyk, that's your running back room. Wide receivers, Conley, Cowing, Pearsall, Ayuk, Samuel, Jennings. Tight ends, Kittle, Salbert, Braden Willis. I guess if you got to put a gun in my head, Braden Willis right now. Okay, I don't know if Lazu did enough, but yeah, I'll say Braden Willis. Um, and then I think that Curtis Robinson makes his team as a linebacker. Right now, with Greenlaw, Warner, Campbell. I think that last spot's going to be really interesting. But I think they can put Batoon on the practice squad. But will it be Jalen Graham? Will it be DFF? Will they just value a person's experience over what he could be? I think that's the interesting part. And then George Odom didn't play today, so I think that was. I mean, obviously the starters were out there, so I should preface this by saying this. I think George Odom is your starter at safety, even though Malik Mustafa started earlier today. I think George Odom's your starter week one, and the reason that he didn't play today is the same reason that like Mooney didn't play, and not that, like, to that degree, but you get what I'm saying. Like, Mooney didn't play, Warner didn't play, Bosa didn't play. You don't have to worry about them being starters clearly, but I think Odom is going to be the guy if Hufanga's not ready to go. So um, again, there's a lot to like in this game. Again, the special teams coverage, I don't know what to say about that, because that's just something that's been a problem for the 49ers the entire time during Kyle Shanahan's time. But Garendo being a good returner, and Cowan being a great punt returner, I think that's really huge. And I think that is giving the team a little bit more juice in terms of, we don't always have to rely on our offense to take us down the field. Sometimes we can get set up with an advantageous field position based on, just the guys that we have. Garendo's a fast guy, and I'm really happy for him. And the same thing with Cowing. So again, and the bottom line is the 49ers draft class is really exciting, and they still haven't seen anything from Ricky Pearsall. And I think that's the part that I think is the most exciting about this group is, if you get anything up from Ricky Pearsall, wow, look out. Like, this might be the best draft class under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, if you get all these contributors. So yeah. Godzilla Von Jing says some guys punched their ticket to getting cut hard tonight. Yeah. I think Samuel Womack did. I think Danny Gray's gone. I think Ronnie Bell's done. Even though he had a really good punt return, I think those are the guys that you immediately look at right away. And you say, yeah, that's not going to work. And then the other guys that, you know, again, like people have a hard time like pronouncing their names, not knowing, like you guys weren't like in the conversation at this point, but you do need bodies to run through preseason. But all right, it's almost 1:30 in the morning. I got to get out of here, guys. Thank you so much again. If you guys are watching on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell for when we go live. Up here in the corner next to my guy Steph Curry is the Underdog Fantasy logo. Make sure you guys subscribe to Underdog Fantasy, sign up for the app, use the promo code APONTE to double your first deposit up to $100. We're going to be doing a bunch of best ball leagues. We're going to do some higher, lower wagers. It is available in California, so make sure you get in on that. And when we drop the best ball leagues, you don't want to miss out on that, so you already want to be subscribed. Again, promo code APONTE, APONTE. Make sure you guys use that. And we're going to take the weekend off, and we're right back at it next week with the week of leading up to football, but it's almost there. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a great rest of your night, and as always, go Niners. Welcome, everybody. Let's go Niners. My name is Jason Aponte.